Welcome to Composers Play. My name is Scott Tobin. For the last 10 years, I've been composing music for video games, such as Project Reality, Squad, and Postscriptum. The concept of Composers Play was brought on from my passion for video game music. So, join me as I relive, discuss, and get a little nostalgic with the composers of some of the most memorable video game music.
Okay, this is Bobby's theme song.
Right.
I actually wrote a theme song for it, which went out with one of the betas, but it got replaced by Bobby's theme song.
Oh, okay.
This is Evinrude. That's another pun. The intro song there, Evinrude is the name of a boat motor company, and I wound up splitting the name up and spelling it Evinrude. As making a rude entrance onto the island.
Right.
With the hunt team.
Nice.
Now here's a bit of trivia. This was not the original Level 1 music. The original Level 1 song in the shareware version was Going Down the Fast Way.
Right, okay.
This one is...
Suck This, is it?
I think this one is called Run Like... I think it's called Suck This. Let me double check. Yes, this is Suck This.
Yeah.
The reason it switched out is because this was new content. It's not the same as the shareware Level 1. They moved Going Down the Fast Way over to, I think, Level 1 of Episode 2. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's where it wound up. But my opinion, Going Down the Fast Way was the better song. Going Down the Fast Way's even got its own history. That one, and my wife's gonna love me for sharing this history. And she's looking at me with a dirty face right now. We got into an argument right before I sat down and wrote that song. We got pretty mad at each other over some sort of trivial something. And immediately after the argument was over, we were still mad at each other. I sat down and I wrote Going Down the Fast Way. And we determined immediately after that I write some of my best music when I'm pissed off.
No way.
No, I haven't tried to duplicate that feat since then. It's too dangerous.
I can imagine.
Yeah, but Going Down the Fast Way is like one of my favorites of Rise of the Triad.
Okay. This
is one that I can't point and say that's my favorite, because it's got too many favorites in there. Going Down the Fast Way, The Cool is another one.
Yeah, Cool's. I like that one.
Evinrude, The Fish Polka is another favorite. Hilaro, Shards, I like. Havana Smooth.
That's my favorite.
The victory song that you get at the end. Spray is fun. It's just too many.
Yeah.
Smoke and Mirrors is another one I had fun with.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just too many to count off.
Too many to count.
Yeah. And
because like when you wrote these, you just literally just churn them out. We were talking about it. you were just like writing loads of tunes, and then you're like, yeah, here we go.
Right. Just
And
hand over.
hopefully they work, you know, and they work. It's so bizarre. It usually doesn't happen like that, you know.
It's bizarre the way that it worked out. I mean, I was churning them out hand over fist, and Tom was so flexible in the way that he accepted what I gave him, and he was accepting of everything, practically everything that I gave to him. Now there we go. There's the loading screen was an excerpt of Cool.
Right. Yeah.
Here we go. Fish Polka.
Here we are.
Yeah, you get to you go to the selection screen, and it lets everybody in the room know that you're cheating by warping. That's
a great idea.
That's why you get this obnoxious polka. And there's a story there. Mark Dockerman wanted me to add something to the polka. It did not start with the da 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 originally.
Right.
It started off with da 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 dun 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 dun. It started with that. But Mark Dockerman was a fan of Second City Television. And they had a sketch with John Candy and one of the other Second City Television members. It was called the Schmengi Brothers, who were polka kings, supposedly. And every single one of their songs started off with da 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 da. So he wanted me to add that to the Fish Polka. I brought that up. I got him in Tom's room, which is where we auditioned everything, because he had these great Roland speakers, which were the top of the line at the time. And Mark listened to it and gave me one of the few high fives I've ever had in my lifetime. He loved it. So, of course, that went into the game. And it's stuck ever since then. The Fish Polka has just gone on and on and on. It's one of those songs that just never dies. And like I said, it got readapted in 20th anniversary world tour of Duke Nukem as the Fish Waltz, which we discussed in the earlier part of the interview.
Right.
Right. So the fish will live on. If there's another chance to use the fish, there will be utilization of the fish in the future. The dope fish will never die.
Right, the dope fish, yeah, from Commander Keen. The memories.
Shards, that's another one. Shards is there because it's inspired by Philip Glass, so shards of glass.
Right. Okay. Nice.
Intended. Someone actually did a cover version of Shards, and it came out better than I imagined it could be. I didn't think you could actually do anything with Shards, but they proved me wrong.
Oh.
They did a rather nice cover of it.
Oh.
It's one of those Shards. The original is an orchestral piece that doesn't have any percussion at all with it, and it actually moves. I'm stuck on the word actually here. It changes tempo from the beginning to the middle section, and then back to a slower tempo in the end section, and then loops. So it's one of the stranger pieces. The first beta that went out was full of Bobby Prince's music. It was just a beta of the shareware episode.
Right.
And he had done a very somber, supposedly, If what I read was correct, it was sort of somber sounding. The next beta that went out included my works, and from what I remember of the comments that came back, some people loved it, some people thought that it was too upbeat.
Interesting.
In the end, that was carried on. There were a lot of people who really liked the sound, the end result. Others who thought that the upbeat stuff made the game feel too lighthearted.
It's interesting. Yeah.
If I had more time to work on it, I may not have done the lighthearted bit.
Right.
The adrenaline rush that I was on probably led to the lightheartedness. That's the thing. I was just writing everything that I could think of, and
yeah, I'm glad that like these tunes are in it. The Havana Smooth and Oh and all these tracks, because they're so cool, like but it suits the game. I couldn't manage any other music in the game,
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It was such a crunch to put those in, and I'm just glad that Tom Hall was the person in charge of it. If it would have been any other person, I don't think I could have done it.
Wow.
Yeah, I owe everything to Tom on that. Yeah, he was my buffer.
Wow.
between myself and George. He was fully in charge.
Right.
Goodness.
Sure.
Because I could swear if I had handed a polka to George, he would have stared me down.
Yeah, what is this?
Exactly. Just like when I handed the bistro music off to Level Lord in the 20th anniversary stuff.
Right.
Would have got the same reaction.
But there's so many tracks we can talk about, but obviously the Havana Smooth one is just so cool, and we were talking about a little bit in the Duke Composer's Play, the solo sections and the way you sequence them, yeah, it's great. What I'd love to hear is that done by an actual big brass band, or a big band, should I say? It'd be amazing.
I would love that myself.
Yeah.
I really would.
Someone's got to do it.
I'd love to hear it. 'Cause I've tried to voice that as closely as I could. I mean, when I remastered it earlier on, I don't remember exactly how many years ago I remastered it. I think it was in the earlier part of around 2005, I think. I'm not sure. But I remastered it to take more advantage of the saxophones, which I don't think were in the original version. I really did voice it for a full brass, for a full stage band ensemble, and tried to fix some of the shortcomings that were in the original.
Right.
Some of the mistakes I'd made in the percussion line, and the revoicing is up on YouTube. If you do a search for Lee Jackson Havana Smooth, you'll find it. Just a complete new version that's posted up there.
Oh, it's the one you posted up a couple of years ago, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It's up there on YouTube. And that one has a much better flute solo than in terms of the instrument that got used, because I did that all using a Roland SC88 sound canvas. This is after I purchased that from Japan. I was using an SC88 a couple of years after I did the Rise of the Triad soundtrack.
Right.
And that was after I had moved out of the tech support room and got into my job as music and sound director. I wrote it while I was using, I believe it was a Gravis ultrasound. I'm not 100% sure. Trying to remember. I used so many sound cards back then, it was ridiculous. Oh, my goodness. A Roland Rap 10 I used. I had an AW32 Sound Blaster.
The
an
AW32 was amazing. Yeah, great cards.
Switched out so many sound cards, it was not funny. Just trying to remember all of them that I had. When I had the chance to revoice it, I did use the big SC88, and the sound for the flute came back a lot better. The inspiration for the flute was, I think the guy's name was Jean-Pierre Rampal, Concerto for Jazz Flute and Orchestra.
Right.
The name of the piece, that's what I got my inspiration from on that. His was, of course, much, much, much more complicated than what I wrote. His was a whole big, long concerto.
Right.
Me, I just took a little tiny bit, or wrote a little tiny bit, but that's where I got the idea for it. That plus our own stage band at the high school I went to in Pasadena, Texas, a suburb of Houston. We quite often had the lead saxophone player double on flute for some of the jazz charts that they play.
Right.
And that's what I envisioned when I wrote the piece. I'd pictured the saxophonist doubling on a flute and then moving over to his saxophone to play the rest of it, and then putting down his sax for the last bit and picking up the flute to finish out the piece.
Right.
And we've already talked about the valve trombone idea.
Right.
The inspiration there, and the rest of it being inspired by some ideas that Tom Hall gave me. The rest of it is Latin jazz. It's pure and simple Latin jazz, inspired by stuff that I've heard on the field from drum and bugle corps, and timbales, bongos, just very basic stuff. And that's another one that I can point at and say that's one of my favorites.
The Havana Smooth, was it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite as well. It's cool.
That one is one I'll listen to on occasion, just for fun. And I've compared it to Elton John. Of course, Elton is more talented, but
well, maybe not for writing music, for writing video game music.
I don't know. He could probably crank out a pretty good one. But this one, it's a cover piece of what's supposed to have been a public domain piece. Again, the origins of this one are a little bit more shadowy. We're not sure if it's 100% public domain. Nobody knows exactly who wrote the original, but it's been used in a lot of things. It was used in the original Rollerball movie, and it showed up in a couple of other movies. Some, if you've ever seen the cult classic Zardoz, it was used very heavily there.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
That's a good one. But taking that and making it sound frantic, that was a lot of fun to do. Now, there's another one in there that I scared the hell out of myself with. Music for the Funeral of Queen Mary. That one.
Funeral of the Queen Mary.
Yeah, Funeral of Queen Mary. It's Medieval 1A. I scared myself with that one because that's one of those cases of where you think you've written something new and it turns out that you've heard that somewhere before.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh crap.
Yeah, where have I heard that before? Yeah.
And I wound up having that happen to me when I watched Clockwork Orange one night.
Oh wow, yeah, great film.
Yeah, the movie started off with that same song. And it was Wendy Carlos's interpretation of it.
Right, yeah. Actually, I can recognize it now.
Yeah. I had to get on and find out exactly what that was, and once I did, I breathed a huge sigh of relief. I found out that I wasn't the only one who was doing a cover version, so was she.
Right.
So, and this was after the game had gone out, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You're
That's
like, oh,
why I
phew,
was.
dodged the bullet.
Yeah, that's why I was sweating bullets.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. That big sigh of relief. But yeah, music for the Funeral of Queen Mary. It's a nice piece.
It's lovely, yeah.
Thank God it's public domain.
Nice.
I'm trying to steer clear from the public domain stuff as of late. What I'm planning on doing in the future, or at least considering doing, since I've gotten a lot of good feedback when I've done tracks like this, is, I hope, doing an album of ambient music.
Nice.
Now, the stuff that I did for Shadow Warrior, the ambient track that I did for Calibrations, which is track 12 when you get it and listen to it, that's the Spicewood track that I was describing earlier.
Right.
The ambient tracks that I did for Duke Nukem, for the 4th episode of Duke Nukem, there's some ambient tracks there. Not as ambient as what I did for Shadow Warrior, but relatively ambient. They've all been well received, and I've wondered what it would be like if I just went whole hog in and wrote nothing but that. And I've been wondering what the public would think if I went ahead and did that. So if anybody's listening to this and has and wants to share their ideas with me, feel free to let me know on my blog site. My blog is at D. Lee Jackson. That's first initial D. LEEJACKSON .lbjackson.com. I've got a comment site there and a contact page. Just drop on by and give me a note. Let me know what you think, and one of these days maybe I will release an album of ambient music. I'd love to hear from you, or on that, or on any other topic that you'd like to talk about. I respond to everything that I get back.
Cool.
So
yeah, that'll be interesting, because I love ambient music, Lee, and most of the stuff I do with the game I'm working on at the moment is all ambient stuff, very like atmospheric background, like pads and stuff, kind of more reminiscent of Brian Eno, that type of thing, So yeah,
right.
if you are doing something like that, I'd love to be on board in some way,
I would like that. Yeah.
Did you hear the new Rise of the Triad soundtrack from 2013?
I've heard a good deal of it. I haven't listened to the entire soundtrack from start to finish, but I've listened to most of Andrew's work, and I like it.
Cool.
I think he's done a great job, and he stayed very true to the original.
Right.
He had some bits that he couldn't replicate exactly, like Havana Smooth. There's really no way to do a heavy metal duplication of that.
Right. Yeah, it's tricky.
I feel sorry for throwing that at him.
Who would have known, 20 years later.
I feel like I may have tortured him in some areas there. But, so I apologize to him in advance, in retrospect, for doing that to him. But he performed like a hero in getting it done.
Right. So, like, what were your best memories back then, Lee, working at 3D Realms and doing all these games?
Well, the best memories were especially working with the Rise of the Triad team.
Right.
Working with Tom Hall, Mark Dockerman, William Scarborough, who we all miss.
Right. Yeah.
And with the other guys, Jim Daget, especially working with Jim on the Apogee sound system. Just getting to be a part of the actual code that went into the game, being able to mold part of what the game did. That was a lot of fun. My original time up there, when I first arrived, and was doing nothing but tech support. That was
right.
fun. Until they switched us over to customer support at the same time. Now, that wasn't quite as fun.
I won't ask why.
Just the phrase, "Where's my order?" became painful to hear. I much rather would have given out a game hint than looked up somebody's order. But in fact, I took a screenshot of the arena in level 1 of Doom, if you remember that, the big outside area.
Right, yeah.
and loaded it up into a paint program, and on the walls out in the distance, painted in blood red, "Where's my order?" dripping blood graffiti on the walls, and set that as my desktop background. So
That's brilliant.
That sort of reflected how I felt at the time.
Right.
But doing that, the initial part of getting into the music and sound director job, the early days there, having nothing to do but write music.
Nice.
Being told that I had to also do sound design, that was a little scary because I'd never done it. That was a learning curve. And it also meant that I had to ask for stuff, which is something that I didn't like to do, but I had to do anyway. Made me uncomfortable.
Right, okay.
But I still enjoyed the music writing part of it. Walking around the office with a pair of drumsticks in my hand, meditating while I did it. When anybody ever saw me with a pair of drumsticks in my hand, that meant I was trying to figure out something on a piece of music.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, that was the signal to leave me alone. I'm out something.
Right.
But just strolling the halls in a circle, and more often than not, that would work. Not always, but more often than not. There were other times though I'd get told to turn things down by George. Once I had bought a new Johnson J Station guitar amp simulator, and had a old cheap guitar that I had run through it and was messing around with it. I'm not a guitar player, I'll tell you that. I am not someone who can handle anything with strings on it.
Right.
If you ask me what I can play, it's easier for me to tell you what I can't play.
Right.
And that would be anything that's got strings. I can't play an orchestral stringed instrument. I can't play a guitar. I tried doing just lead tracks, and this one night I was trying to get a feel for what this J Station could do, what kind of sounds I could get out of it, and I got George coming down and telling me to turn it down. And I looked up at him and asked him if he was serious, and he said yes. And my God, I'm doing music here, and you're telling me to turn it down.
Right.
God, so I didn't turn it down. I turned it off.
Okay. I think this song we listened to is the only song I can think of in a video game where there's a fretless bass solo. This one's is it CC Cool?
Oh, that one.
Yeah, it's great.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah, it's so good.
Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, that one. That was done intentionally for the purposes of having a fretless bass solo.
Oh yeah, it's so good. But like, a lot of your songs have solos anyway, but they're all really cool. They're all super catchy, you know.
Yeah, I did do intentional solos, because I thought, there's got to be, you can't have ensemble all the time.
Right.
You got to do some solos occasionally, just to I mean, it's not going to distract the player.
No.
It's going to make the game experience more interesting.
Right.
That was what I thought. Yeah.
It definitely does.
I just thought that if you're going to listen to the music outside the game, have the solos.
Right.
There weren't that many solos in Duke Nukem or any other game because I didn't have Tom working with me, and I didn't have anybody with the same feeling. The solos that I worked in there were more ensemble solos, if you get what I mean, like a group of French horns playing the solo.
Right. Mm-hmm. You played the monks in Rise of Triad, is that correct? Or one of the monks?
I was the death monk.
Right.
And I was the death monk with a sprained knee, as a matter of fact.
All right.
I had a brace on my knee underneath the monk outfit. That's one reason why I look like I'm limping whenever I'm walking.
I can see it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So I've got this big leg length brace on underneath my outfit.
It actually makes it very creepy as well when they're walking.
So they've got me up on this turntable, and they have to make me freeze in between each step, and trying to balance while I've got that brace on was just a nightmare.
I can imagine.
And I couldn't put much weight on my other foot. So you can just imagine what the shooting session was like.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So it took a while. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah, I actually played in the bass line on that. And I didn't play in much of anything. I moused everything else in, but for some reason I figured I needed to play in the bass line on that one song. I'm listening to it over here on my side.
Right.
It starts off with the strings, and then has the bass line come in doubles, an octave below, and then bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum ba dum bum bum ba dum bum ba dum bum bum ba dum. That's where I became familiar with the quantize function. Although I didn't quantize it too much. I went in and tried playing with it and didn't like what it did. It didn't smartly quantize things very well.
It's the wrong feel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went in and instead hand slid most of the notes over to get them to sound natural.
Right.
That's just one of the things when I've put things in myself by hand. I've gone in and hand tweaked them afterwards.
Gotcha. I love the harmonies in I Choose the Stars. The especially the brass harmony.
Oh yeah,
it's cool. Lots of nice counter harmony to what the melody's doing. It's lovely.
That's another one that I've always had in the back of my mind, thinking I've heard this somewhere before, but I've never been able to put it with I've never been able to match it with something.
Right.
I thought that maybe this was similar to something I'd heard Spyro Gyra play.
Oh right, yeah, the jazz fusion band, yeah.
Right. It's at the very least, it's heavily influenced by Spyrogyra,
Right.
but it's not. As far as I can tell, I didn't rip it off.
Yeah, it doesn't sound familiar. I know a lot of other albums. It doesn't sound familiar at all. So
I just cross my fingers and hope that a lawsuit doesn't come my way one day. That's all I can do.
right.
But yeah, I went that direction. Lots of parallel melodies, or at least as parallel as you could get without breaking too many rules of the rules of music theory.
Gotcha.
No, trying to stay away from parallel fifths as much as I could.
Yeah, fifths and fourths.
Yeah. But the piece came out good, I hope.
Yeah, no, it's great.
It's one that I'll listen to on occasion just for the fun of it,
Yeah.
like the rest of them.
Yeah. They all are. They're all very catchy. Like all the songs from Rise of the Triad, and even Duke as well. But I think Rise of the Triad, they're all like they're not as atmospheric as Duke, but they're definitely much more fun. You know, they're much more fun to hear. You know, because of Rise of the Triad, it's seamless. You know, it's such a silly game. But, you know, it makes it.
Right.
Yeah.
They've got hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing about them. The Duke has got one hook that I've spread throughout the game. It's, you know, the grab bag theme that I've spread throughout.
Right.
And the Rise of the Triad, each individual song has got its own hook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or at least most of the songs have their own hook. Not all of them.
Sure.
So it's just impossible to pigeonhole Rise of the Triad. There's just no way to do it. But it was a strict set of instruments. I didn't throw random instruments in at odd times. I just had a fixed set of instruments come in and do everything with just that small set of instruments. And from there, everything else was free to come and go. The melody was just as it came to me, but the law that I talk about was what instruments I used and where they were going to be.
Right. It's interesting that you mentioned that because I was doing a composer's play with Kevin Schilder. I don't know if you know him or recognize his music. You know, he did the music for Heretic and Hexen.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him the same question. Like he stuck within a certain set of instruments for whatever game it was. I think we were playing Heretic, and he says, "Yeah, he got out the GM list of all the instruments and just scratched off the ones he wouldn't use, and he just stuck with those instruments." And yeah, it's interesting. You did exactly the same as well, you know.
It's a good rule to follow.
Yeah.
I mean, it does help speed up the process.
Right.
In that kind of situation. That's something that I did with the non-ambient songs in Shadow Warrior. Mm-hmm. Again, I picked my stars, the koto and the shamisen.
Right, yeah. Quintessential Japanese instruments.
Mm-hmm. Picked those, picked where I was going to put them, picked the percussion that was going to star in it, and then brought in other instruments as needed. And that was the backbone of every non-ambient piece for Shadow Warrior, and that sped things up there. What slowed down Shadow Warrior was the ambient pieces, because I hadn't managed to come up with a set of rules for them yet.
Right.
And I needed more ambient than non-ambient stuff for Shadow Warrior.
Gotcha.
So, but we could go on for hours about that. And,
I know.
That's not what this interview's about.
No, it is. It's. I mean, Lee, I could probably talk to you for hours and wear the air off you, but yeah, I could definitely be here all day talking to you about this stuff, because it's. I love it, like, you know. But this is why I'm doing these series, you know.
Right. Yeah. It's the same. The only problem is I think my voice is just about ready to give out.
Yeah, I know the feeling. No, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm looking forward to hearing your new music for the show that's coming up. Yeah, and I will buy your album, because I just bought the 20th anniversary of Duke, so I'm gonna play through that, and I'm gonna enjoy your music as well. So.
Well, I thank you very much. I mean, it's been a real privilege to be interviewed by you.
Thanks,
I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it a great deal, and I look forward to Monday, and I look forward to Friday as well.
Awesome.
It's been fun, and I thank you for the opportunity.